and small-scale mining, illegal and illegal, being the number one factor, but closely followed by stationary combustion of coal, then non-ferrous metals production. I mean, heavy industry, the kind of thing that you would have welcomed, and then cement production at number 4. The kinds of things that seem to be activities that are helping build our economy, certainly helping to fuel big business and heavy industry, of course being heavily polluting. Now, as a climatologist, how are you going to combine the needs to expand the economy, very much on the front burner of the new government, and certainly expanding industrialization, and your interests and your responsibilities as head of the EPA?
Yeah, thank you. I think you rightly had mentioned quite a number of issues. Of course, we have our environmental standards at the global level. So you mentioned the air quality in Ghana as not good enough, or we can't be proud of it. So that's one issue. Actually, we have a lot of environmental challenges here. We have a lot of environmental challenges. And so, of course, air quality is one, and EPA equally monitors the air quality. And if you saw in the news recently in December, issued out the air quality status in the country, especially for Accra. Another emergency I started working on is our water quality. And we know this is through our anthropogenic activities. That's exactly the illegal mining activities in our water bodies. We have clear laws of our protected areas in the country that we cannot mine in these protected areas. So that includes our water bodies. And no one will give a permit for a miner to mine in our water bodies. So it's completely illegal to touch our water bodies for mining. So that is where I started work on. And just also to let you know that other challenges like the plastic waste management that we have, it's all on the table. I'm working on it, putting up the various documents and how to get especially the former places to start acting according to the international treaties that we have signed on as a country.
Indeed. Professor Browne Klutse, before we get on to the plastic waste problem, which is of huge interest to us personally here at Asaase Radio, and we'd love to talk to you more about it, but talking about, say, the air pollution factor, and as you said, the signalling of the danger about the quality of air, particularly in Greater Accra region, particularly with the advent of the Harmattan, and the health warnings that went out about this not just being dust on the air, but the high level of pollutants in the air. As the EPA, we know that you are reported to have stepped up the monitoring activities of EPA officers. One, how are you stepping up the monitoring? Is it by having greater numbers of boots on the ground doing the monitoring, or is it to do with the frequency of the monitoring?
Yes, we have a limitation in terms of human resources and material resources for our work. It does not mean we cannot work. What we make use of what we have now to make improvements in our activities, especially our monitoring. So the EPA, especially based on the new act, it's supposed to go decentralized as much as possible. So the EPA is getting to the district level so that we can improve upon our monitoring. Getting to the district level means we need additional resources like the cars, the pickups we use to go around for monitoring, the human resource, which means we have to employ some more people into the system to help us with the monitoring. So that's it, the additional that is the additional responsibility given to EPA by the new act. So to get down to the district level. So we will improve upon our monitoring to make sure that people are complying to the environmental rules. And that is the key mandate of EPA. Protecting the environment, but making sure also that people do the right things.
And then
we have also waste management issues to deal with in the country.
Yes. Before we get on to waste management, when the environmental protection inspectors then, for example, discover a business polluting the air heavily through some kind of combustion process that's happening, you can imagine that there are laws that can be immediately applied. What happens, for example, to people who are doing cooking using biomass, wood and charcoal? At district level, will the EPA be equipped with the muscle to clamp down on activities by, say, somebody who's producing food on a medium to large scale, but they think that the activity is too polluting?
You see, the difficulty is also based on our culture. We have to first provide alternatives for our people. So if you provide alternative cooking option, that is the only way we can now enforce these rules of not using charcoal or burning charcoal. But until that, we cannot really enforce this kind of practice that we want to. So we need to provide alternative cooking methods or ways. So if you want to go solar energy, we have to provide solar cooking stoves and solar cooking ovens for people before we can enforce that. But then, even on that, there's a bigger issue. There are emergency issues that we need to deal with as a country. Like you mentioned, the air quality. You mentioned the water pollution issues. You mentioned, we also talked about the plastic waste. We need to start from somewhere at this point to make sure that we are dealing with this situation. Getting down to the people, most of these ones we are touching their livelihoods, but we have to provide alternative ways of cooking before we get to regulating them.
So we know, for example, the previous Second Lady had a Clean Cook Stoves initiative, which is not quite solar powered, but helps minimize the use of biomass in cooking processes. But again, as you say, it's hugely dependent on having the resources to run these programs. And then you were beginning to talk about the question of waste pollution, one that is, as I was saying, of huge interest to us here at Asaase, both waste management and particularly the plastic waste problem. I mean, some astonishing figures, Ghana generating over 3,000 tons of plastic waste every day, 1.1 million metric tons, and in excess of per year. And 86% of that approximately being mismanaged, according to the UN Environmental Programme. How do you even begin to tackle the problem, Professor Ama Browne Klutse?
Yeah, thank you. So what the EPA's plan is to start dealing with this in the formal sectors, in the formal areas, the formal institutions. So what we will do in the coming days is to encourage institutions to start separating wastes. At least we can recycle these plastics, we can recycle e-waste products, we can recycle bottles and some metals. And so we can start separating waste, and we are going to issue a statement for institutions to encourage institutions to start separating waste and reduce the use of plastic products as much as possible, which means that we encourage dispensing of water in the formal sector. Slowly we'll get to the informal sector. And then we'll meet soon with the plastic producers as the main stakeholder in this fight. We'll meet them and encourage them to also start thinking or start producing alternatives for their packaging other than plastics. So we'll take it slowly, but hopefully we'll get there very soon.
Very soon, we all hope. Here at Asaase, we run the Asaase Plastics Patrol campaign. We're soon to launch, and we're very much interested in the problem of plastic waste, but have been very keenly aware that in trying to address it, you immediately begin to step on toes. It does involve some quite big money. So one of the formal spaces where you hope to begin to address the problem of single-use plastics in particular is supermarkets. Do you really believe that you can get the supermarkets to back down on handing out free carrier bags?
Yes, I believe we can, and we can learn lessons from other countries like Rwanda, like Kenya, like Tanzania. We can learn lessons from these countries, how they did it. The supermarkets also come through, they take permits from EPA. So as part of their permitting, we can go strictly by they using paper packaging other than single-use plastics. Mm-hmm. So we'll meet with them, start talking like this, and then making sure that they comply by these rules. We have to be radical at some point. And as I said, we'll start slowly, but with formal institutions and formal settings. And then we take it slowly to the informal settlements as well.
Mm-hmm. So you'll start off with, as you said, airports, supermarkets, banks, for example.
And universities.
Sorry, the line to you got slightly scrambled, Professor Browne Klutse.
So airports, supermarkets, and universities.
Yes, a great place to start. Questions about how they'll complain that it hits their bottom line. But then another big one, and not exactly in the informal sector, bottled water or packaged water. Plastic sachets, the nightmare of all of us, not just in urban areas, clogging up our sewage systems, and plastic bottles. We've seen recently the expansion of municipal waste collection and separation through the recycling plants based on municipal assembly. So collecting municipal assembly waste, separating it because it's not separated at source, and then trying to recycle as much as possible. Is that a line that you will continue to pursue, or will you want the onus to be placed on the source of the waste? So both households and businesses separating their waste, and then that segregated waste being picked up and recycled.
Yes, so that is the idea. We already have a lot of plastics in the system, and you mentioned the statistics earlier on. We have opportunity to recycle them. There are institutions that are already recycling most of these plastics into other products. So we will encourage the recycling, but then we need to also encourage the separation of the waste so we can have the different waste type materials to get through the recycling processes. Mm-hmm. Whilst we reduce the usage of plastic, especially the single-use ones, we reduce the usage of them. But then you mentioned about the household. Yes, as we encourage institutions to do the separation of waste, we would also encourage households to do separation of waste. And we encourage the waste collectors and encourage more waste collectors to be in the system other than a single company like Zoom Lion work. You can clearly see that the work is overwhelming for Zoom Lion. We are yet to meet with Zoom Lion on this, but then we encourage that we get other waste management companies in the system to collect waste from household and also from the streets. You walk through Accra, you see heaps of waste dumped, and it's not good enough for a country and a capital city of Accra. So there are a lot we can do, or we have to do as a country, and we have to take it slowly, I believe.
You talked a little bit earlier on, or you mentioned about, say, water dispensing by institutions. So how does that work? You have like a water dispensing point, like a water cooler, and you bring your own cup or you bring your own flask. You encourage people to come with flasks and fill up?
Yeah, so this is also practiced in other countries. As for water dispensing, we have it in many institutions already. But then getting a tap a tap water which is portable for drinking. It's also an area we can look at or do. We have it practiced, especially in Europe and many countries in Europe. And it's a practice we can also start. Bring your own cup and drink, or use your palm to just to drink the water. We have it done, seen that done in many airports and in the middle of the cities. We can practice same, so we reduce the use of plastics.
Water fountains, for example.
Yeah, probably.
Then the other big area, of course, that a lot of people have been made more aware of recently is, of course, the one that you touched on earlier, water pollution, particularly water pollution caused by illegal mining, the dreaded galamsey, not unique to Ghana, but an increasing problem in our country. We've seen the effects on agriculture, we've seen the effects on public health. There was even a shocking clip circulating just this week of a baby panning for gold in the middle of a pile of dirty water, possibly with mercury and other pollutants, heavy metal pollutants in it. Now, you're talking about matters that are not just to do with environmentalism, but also to do with security, national security. How do you propose to link with other state agencies or bodies to actually take this fight to the people who are engaged in illegal mining and polluting the sources of our drinking water, the stuff that we need for life?
Yeah, we are in, I would say, dangerous times, as our waters are getting actually polluted. You know, the turbidity level that we have the moment is between 5,000 and 12,000. The allowable turbidity level is 500 NTU. That is the level that is treatable for our water to be portable for us to drink. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. So at the lower level, it's 10 times the internationally acceptable level.
Exactly. And so the water company is struggling to treat the water and make it safe for us to drink. Which means that even just as that's just the turbidity, there's heavy metals also in the water, and Ghana Water Company is not able to treat the water to remove all the heavy metals in our water bodies. So which means that the water, even if we don't drink, we use it for cooking, and we leave these heavy metals in there. We know mercury, we know cyanide, we know lead, that is in our water, and hydrocarbons in our water bodies, that we are using this water for cooking. It's not only safe to say I will not drink from this source, but we are using it for cooking as well, and it still gets back into our system. This is the danger I want us to deal with as a country. And we can avoid this illegal mining in our water bodies, which it should be a collective fight for all of us to do. Only a few are doing this illegal mining in our water bodies and causing all of us in the country our access to water or access to quality water. This is a discussion we have to have as a national body to deal with it. We cannot continue to allow a few people, because of money they want or the gold they want from our river bodies, to cost us all our water. Water is essential. It's part of our life. We cannot do without water. So this is the emotions are actually attached to this kind of fight. That's the reason I started work immediately I assumed office.
Indeed, and it's something that I can tell by the sound of your voice you feel very passionate about. But you mentioned the key word there, money. So in the same way as you and I might be thinking of the horrendous effects on our water sources, leaving us increasingly with no sources of water to tap for everyday use, whether that's washing, least still for drinking. But you're talking about people who make a great deal of money out of completely flouting environmental regulations. The argument is always that those people will not stop what they're doing unless they're provided with an alternative source of livelihood. How do you propose to approach that as the new head of the EPA?
Yes, so thank you. There should be alternative source of livelihood in these communities where they mine. One thing as a country we have to do, there is gold in the soil. It's safe, it's legal, completely legal for people to mine our gold in the soil. But mining alluvial gold in the water is what we should ban. We should ban completely. We should not touch our water bodies. So which means we should stop mining alluvial gold in the water. We should be mining gold in the soil. So we just have to change our style of mining. Yes, it is money people need to survive. We need it as a country to boost our economy. But it should be done in a sustainable way. It should be done without distracting our environment. It should be done without distracting the very existence of our life or features that help us survive in this country.
So leave the water bodies alone. If you want to mine gold on a small scale, do it on terra firma. Even on land, though, you must admit that some of the examples we've seen of just whole-scale excavating in the middle of residential areas and so on, because gold has been found, that a stop has to be put to that. Now, you are somebody, of course, you are the scientist. You are, a climatologist and a physicist by training. You talked about the problem with access to resources for people, employees of the EPA, to go out and actually do the monitoring and the evaluation, particularly of large-scale businesses or industries that may be causing environmental pollution of various kinds. When it comes also to the scientific expertise to test for the levels of pollution in our environment. For example, e-waste, you mentioned in passing earlier on, a huge problem. We have Agboglushi, described as hell on earth by the likes of Sebastião Salgado, who've taken pictures of, masses of computers being broken up, small children scrabbling around looking looking for tiny bits of scrap metal, which may or may not be precious, to sell for small amounts of money to some quite ruthless dealers. How do you, hope to develop the kind of level of scientific expertise that you need for testing for the presence of some of these dangerous chemicals are in our environment? And how do you hope to deal with the problem of e-waste?
Yeah, thank you. So the EPA has laboratories in all the offices and has a much bigger laboratory at the Tema office. So
Professor Browne Klutse, I think the line to you has temporarily got scrambled, but I hope we'll have you back on again in a moment.
Through these laboratories, we are able to test. Hello?
Hello, we can hear you now.
Okay. So through this, EPA has laboratories at the different regional offices and has a much bigger laboratory at the Tema office. So we test these chemicals in the laboratories.
So all the district level inspectors would be expected to do is to gather the samples, and then those would go to the testing centers.
Yes, so we do regulate chemicals that get into the country, and we test obviously the composition of the chemicals, and so we do this through our various labs before we are able to give very specific permits as to how they should operate and guide them through their operations.
So
are we good on that?
Hello, Professor Browne Klutse. Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Yeah, so we test the various chemicals before we allow the operators to operate on that.
So there's a good regime in place there governing imported chemicals. The keeping up with what's going on the ground, perhaps being the one that we need to keep an eye on. Now, another special interest of ours in-house, Kuja said, I really must ask you about this. Ambient noise pollution. We know that there is, again, well-established legislation set in 2008. During the day, noise levels are not supposed to be above 55 decibels, and at night the limit is 48. And of course we see that regularly flouted by owners of entertainment venues, by churches, by one man, people just who have a loudspeaker and want to make some noise standing on a road corner. I drive by one, or I go by one every weekday morning. Fortunately, most mornings too early for him to have set up yet, but if I get my timing wrong, you get a complete earful of it. Is ambient noise or noise pollution again one of your top targets, or will it be rather lower down the pecking order compared to water pollution, air pollution?
Yeah, I would say the issue of noise pollution is emerging. EPA has some probes for testing sound pollution, and we also test sound pollutions at places they have their quarries and other mining areas where they do blasting. So we have also probes to do the testing. However, because it's new, we've not set probes everywhere in the country. We are yet to reach everywhere in the country on these sensors that we use for our tests.
Right.
So we also have an LI to put together based on the Act, and that is still in progress. We are not set.
So the legislative instrument yet to be shaped and taken through Parliament, and you spoke also of the environmental courts that you're setting in the process of setting up. An awful lot on your plate, Professor Browne Klutse, I must say, on every level, because wherever you go, and you know, we're an entrepreneurial people, we're quite restless, and the activity of restlessness generates pollution in some shape or form, sometimes at levels that are just not unhealthy or acceptable. Going into your new job, I wanted to ask you, as the new head of the EPA, what your single greatest plea to the state would be, first of all, by way of arming you to do the job of work that you clearly are so keen to do.
So I will plead with Ghanaians to value the environment. We have to go through attitudinal change as people to respect the environment and to understand that we only surviving or living on this earth because we have the environment. We have the air. We have the air. We have the water. We have the land. We have the land that provides us with the food and where we even walk and have a living. So we need to respect the air that we breathe, the water we drink, and the food we eat. If we don't, then we are touching the reason we are living. And so I will plead with all Ghanaians to value the environment. So we give the respect that the environment needs, so that we will live comfortably on our earth. There won't be any problem for EPA to solve in this country.
Value the earth. Professor Browne Klutse, you've answered the question the other way round, because I was going to ask you what you wanted ordinary people to do, and you've kind of answered that question for us. We would, of course, love to talk to you about our own public awareness about plastic waste in future. But my first question actually was what you want the state, the government, to do for you to arm you with the teeth that you need to do your job.
Yeah, so I'm grateful for what you do as Asaase Radio on this plastic waste, and I will also say you should continue to do the good works and add on the other issues of the environment to your campaign. And I hope that Ghanaians will listen and Ghanaians will act accordingly.
Well, Professor Browne Klutse, I think thank you very much for your time. Sorry about the difficulties with the line to you. But we're very grateful to have had you on the Asaase Breakfast Show. Best of luck in your new job. We'll be following you and hopefully talking to you a lot more in the days to come. Thank you very much for being on the Asaase Breakfast Show. Thank you. In a good time, I will appear on your studio. Fantastic. We'll look forward to that. Thank you. And have a great day. You.
You too. Bye.
So that was Professor Ama Browne Klutse, the acting chief executive of the Environmental Protection Agency, and yes, a woman clearly who is hit the ground running, and we hope that not too many impediments appear in her path to stop her running in the months to come. Yes, I think a cheering one for us all on the Asaase Breakfast Show.